Welcome. What I want to present to you now is part two of my understanding of the very first verse of the Sefer Yetzirah, the ancient book of creation or book of formation, as it's also known. So let me begin by sharing my presentation here. Okay, and here we are. Now, let's see. I'm repeating the first couple of slides from part one so that you can always go back to this and see how the late Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan translated this first verse, and also how I translated it from the short version of the Sefer Yetzirah. And I'm going to pick up with the word Yah, which is a name for God that you find in particular in Isaiah. So next in Sefer Yetzirah 1:1 is mention of God, Yah, as the creator of multiplicity. In several of the versions of Sefer Yetzirah, one finds at this point a list of various appellations for God. However, the appellations are not completely identical from one version to the next, and that suggests that they were added on later. Thus, I have decided to use a briefer description, such as one finds in some of the variations of the short version of the Sefer Yetzirah. In that version, we find Yah, the name for God, used in Isaiah, as well as a phrase that is usually translated as Lord of Hosts. However, upon reflection, one realizes that this translation may not be the best. For instance, we say Lord or Adonai simply in place of the most sacred name for God that is not pronounced and is written as Yud-He Vav-He. A precise translation of Yud-He Vav-He would be something like the one who causes being, or more simply, the creator. Additionally, the word that is translated as hosts has the plain meaning of an army or host of soldiers. However, the root meaning of the word Savah is a mass of things. Thus, in the context of this mystical text, I believe the translation creator of multiplicity to be closer to the intent of the author. Furthermore, the name Yah, spelled Yud-He, can be seen as suggesting this interpretation. The letter Yud stands for Yehidah, unity, and the letter He is also in Hebrew the number 5, thus suggesting the expansion of unity into a 5-dimensional universe, as will be described later on in this text. On the next slide for comparison are the appellations that you find in the traditional versions of the Sefer Yetzirah, along with my choice. And if you look closely at these, you see they're similar, but not completely identical. Okay, so there are some variations from one version to the next. Now, for those versions of the Sefer Yetzirah that include several different appellations for God, it is a reminder that we can never see or know God in its entirety. We can only grasp particular, more limited aspects of God, such as oneness or love. And in the Midrash, in Genesis Rabbah, this is a point that Rav Huna makes. Rav Huna said, whatever things you see are but parts of the ways of the Holy One, blessed be he. As it says, from the book of Job, lo, these are but parts of his ways. Additionally, in my translation, I generally refer to God as it. This is to highlight the ultimate ineffableness of God. And by doing this, I'm also following a precedent found in the Zohar, where noticing that the very first verse of Genesis has a singular verb, bara, for create, followed by a plural noun, Elohim, one of the names for God. It retranslates this verse so that the plural Elohim becomes the direct object instead of the subject. Thus, the Zohar changes the phrase, in the beginning, God created, to, in the beginning, it created God. And by doing this, it makes a distinction between the God we cannot know and the God that we describe with human attributes. And throughout the Zohar, it's rather common to use the name Elohim to refer to a God that is partially revealed, God that we give attributes to, such as just or merciful or long-suffering. In contrast to this, Yud He Vav He is usually used in the Zohar to refer to the God that is beyond conception, the God that we can assign no attributes to whatsoever. And so following some translators of the Zohar, I'm just referring to that level of God by it. Now here's a very interesting passage from the Zohar. So let me read this. It is written, "And the intelligent shall shine like the brightness of the firmament, and they that turn many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever." There was indeed a brightness, Zohar. The most mysterious struck its void and caused this point to shine. This beginning then extended and made for itself a palace for its honor and glory. There it sowed a sacred seed which was to generate for the benefit of the universe, and to which may be applied the scriptural words, "The holy seed is the stock thereof." Again, there was Zohar, in that it sowed a seed for its glory, just as the silkworm encloses itself, as it were, in a palace of its own production, which is both useful and beautiful. Thus, by means of this beginning, the mysterious unknown made this palace. This palace is called Elohim, and this doctrine is contained in the words, "By means of a beginning, it created Elohim." This passage is fascinating to me because it sounds like a very poetic description of the Big Bang. Also, it suggests that Elohim, the revealed form of God, is in some sense the entire creation, all the various things that we see parts of here and there. Now, the very last part of our passage says that God created the universe with 3 books, Sepharim, story, Sefer, number, Safar, and communication, Sipur. The most interesting thing about this is that all of these words have the same 3-letter Hebrew root, namely Samak Pei Resh. Consequently, this shows that while the basic pattern for creation is 2 opposing parts, story and number, with interaction between them, it is all still really just one undifferentiated unity. This is also suggested by the following verse from the Zohar that states that if it weren't for our minds making distinctions between things, we would still perceive the ever-present oneness. So from the Zohar, we have been taught that all this differentiation of the divine personality is from our side and relative to our knowledge, and that above, all is one, all is set in one balance, unvarying and eternal. As it is written in the book of Malachi, "I, the Lord, do not change." Also in our passage, we may interpret the word story and number as referring to what we would understand today as the functions of the right and left hemispheres of the brain. Thus, we have the implication that it is consciousness that creates our world through manipulation of the brain. Additionally, the gematria or numerical value of the Hebrew root for all 3 words, story, number, and communication, is Samak Pei Resh, which adds up to 340. The same as Shin Mem, which in Hebrew spells name, and is often used as a synonym for God. Thus, we arrive at the conclusion that the creation is nothing but the name of God. More specifically, it is the God name of Elohim that is most closely associated with the created universe. For example, the gematria of Elohim is 86, which is the same as that of Hateva, a word for the nature. And the icing on the cake is the passage quoted previously from the Zohar that gives a very eloquent description of the creation of the universe that is in harmony with the Big Bang, and that refers to the universe as a palace that is called Elohim. And then, of course, it closes with the words, "By means of a beginning, it created Elohim." The bottom line of this first passage is that in order to create a universe such as the one we know, unity has to be broken up into three component parts, one part opposite another, and a third part that provides for interaction between the two. And as the Sefer Yetzirah will note later on, this mirrors a statement found in Ecclesiastes 7:14 that God has made one thing opposite another. However, since the Hebrew root is the same for each of the component parts mentioned above, this shows the illusory nature of this division. It is like taking a glass of water and trying to separate it into the above water, the below water, and the in-between water. In the end, it's all just water. Okay. And that finishes the first verse of the Sefer Yetzirah, my explanation of it. So let me stop sharing. And we will stop recording. And so I wish everyone a fond farewell and hope to see you again for future recordings on future verses from the Sefer Yetzirah. Bye now.